Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And when it comes to news for EVE Online, it's been a pretty slow week yet again. We do know what's coming, of course. The fleet formations are still on the horizon, but after that we don't really know how CCP is going to develop EVE Online further. And I must say, I'm getting the sense when I read the subreddit and things like that quite a few players feel like the game is in a bit maybe of a rut, or it's too slow for them. I'll be honest, number one, we've been here before. I still remember when early in my time playing EVE Online, we had the Sancha incursions, live events that were run by the devs themselves, and for a period there it was like every week or several times a week, and so there was constantly chatter going on. We also had to try and figure out clues that were left behind, constant analysis of what the devs actually did in character and said in character in local, and it was really a major time of buzzing, just like with the incursions, with Triglavian incursions basically. And after that you do of course get a lull where you get a sense of, man, why is this so slow? Why isn't the story progressing? Well, honestly, I don't think there's a game developer on the planet that can keep up with the ravenous hunger for content that MMO gamers have. So I feel like this is a natural cycle that comes back ever so often, but perhaps for quite a few players this is like the first time that they experience it, where, well, basically CCP isn't going to make the fun for you at the moment. It is a sandbox and it's up to you to set your goals, to try and find your fun, to try and find to do what you enjoy doing. At the same time, when a lot of people are, slowing down, those that persevere, I feel, are having like a much bigger impact on the game and are forging ahead and getting big advantages. For instance, right now, plex are going for less than 1.25 billion. Definitely a doable goal. With a little bit of luck in exploration, I'm pretty sure that I could do that without having to put too much time in the game. And that's the other side of the medal, right? When things slow down, it also does tend to be easier to make a big impact on the game. So my message here is that this is actually a great time to consolidate. That's what I tend to use this time for, to enjoy what you enjoy doing, and to perhaps as a side project get ready for the future. And I kind of decided that I thought we'd do this during the Sunday recap, but I'm going to start building up my base of operation in Caldari space. That's something that I'm going to do next, including a golem for missions. So it's going to be interesting. For this time, sure, right? You don't have like a lot of news to look at or a lot of new stuff that's coming, pretty soon, so that you can get ready for that. No, you have to set your own goals at this time, but if you do that and you manage to actually reach those goals, you're that much ready to enjoy the game when CCP picks back up with more new developments, more sand for the sandbox. So yeah, that's kind of the intro message for this one. As always, we'll also take a quick look at the New Eden store to see what's happening here. So we get some bundles for apparel, bundles for skin front and center. I'm not spotting any sales. And then on the services, we have nothing on sale either. And pretty soon we won't have the expert systems here. They'll only be purchasable through the website. All right, that means we get to move on to the markets. And as always, we start with plex and stuff. That's coming in at 405. Like that. And yeah, let's get started with those plex. You can see here for the first time, I think in quite a while, plex have gone below 2.5 million in JITA 4.4, just above 2.3 million in JITA as well for the buyers. And you can see here on the chart that basically the camel's back has been broken. The average price of just above 2.4 million no longer defended, and that means that we make a pretty decent jump down towards 2.3 million for the average prices. That should mean pressure in the Tranquility Trading Tower. Yep, just above 2.4 million for the sellers, and then the buyers are of course above the 2.3 million mark. Still a 1 million margin between those two. It's not a lot, everything is moving in lockstep, but this is not looking good for investors, of course. If you bought on this downturn or on this downturn right here, you know, towards 2.5 million. It was also always my belief that 2.5 million and below would be a good purchase. It may still be, of course, inflation, you know, may be coming back to the game at some point, but right now, in the current environment, no, players are actually dumping a lot of their plex, and now we're able to buy them below 2.4 million, which is also why I kind of warn all the time that you should not put all your eggs in a single basket. In fact, my investment strategy at the moment is to keep everything balanced, have as much liquid risk as I've got stuff, as I've got plex. I'm, you know, very close to that point here, and so I'm trying to balance that out as best as I can. I don't want to take big gambles on, all right, it's going to be deflation, it's going to be inflation, and this is, for instance, why, sure, I'm having a little bit of a loss now on the plex that I'm holding. But in exchange, of course, the ISK that's in my wallet can now buy more plex. And so I'm protected on all sides. It means no real profits, but it also means that losses are almost always completely mitigated. And so here now, yeah, plex very cheap, and that means that for 500 plex for a 30 days game time, it's less than 1.25 billion ISK. We haven't seen that in a very long time, and honestly, you know, just above $1 billion in 1 month, I feel like that's something that's doable. In this time, this could really be a goal that you can try to set for yourself. Now, if you're a completely new player, excuse me, that is going to be very hard. I wouldn't say, you know, set that goal now, but if you have like at least a fully trained alpha character or something like that, I feel like that number is overseeable, right? With exploration, you can pretty easily find 100 million in drops on some good sites with a little bit of luck. So with some perseverance, add in perhaps some missioning, perhaps mining, maybe if you, for instance, are willing to go to low sec, you may be able to do that. So this is a pretty nice decline in plex, and definitely very interesting from the affordability standpoint. The multiple pilot train certificates are forced down as well in the exact same region, just above 1.2 billion for the sellers, just below 1.2 billion for the buyer. So this would be for a second character, of course. It's not the same thing as plex, but it gives you a bit of an indication on what you have to try to earn. And yeah, 1 year low point definitely here now on the 5-day moving average. After that, we have the skill extractors to take a look at that are also making a step down, and I always do feel like some round numbers tend to be like a bit of resistance. So here, this is, you know, if you're looking at the short term, not good news, because that does mean that we could go even lower. But skill extractors on the chart below 280 million ISK on average, 271 for the sellers, 255 million for the buyers. That's definitely, again, a very pronounced 1 year low point showing up in the real life stuff. So you could say, man, that's terrible news. It means that, you know, activity is declining, and it could definitely be. I mean, I'm seeing a little bit less hype around the big war. Players may be stalling their activities. We'll be honest, of course, kind of a weird year, and I think throughout the world there's sort of a little bit of hope bubbling up that we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for the pandemic situation as well. I mean, vaccines are being rolled out in pretty much all countries. I mean, here in Belgium, not that fast, but I feel like, you know, we're doing our best overall, and I think that every country is basically doing pretty much the best with what they have. And I think that this is also starting to give people a little bit of hope, and they're trying to be motivated to do some other stuff. On top of that, here in Belgium, while it's pretty cold, we've had amazing weather, like really sunshine almost every day for the last couple of weeks. So people are going more outside, and it's slowly getting warmer. We're getting through the winter. All of that is, of course, helping, I think, with lower activity, and as a result, very cheap as well, of course. So here we go, these skill extractors. You can probably buy those for 260 million or something like that pretty easily. The impact on the skill injectors next is, well, that one, they are continuing to slowly decline, but here is that resistance that I was talking about. 630 million, the market is definitely hesitating to go below that. We touched it once, twice, and now the third time. This could be, of course, the one where we will break through. Who knows? We'll have to see next next week. But yeah, these large scale injectors very close to the 1-year low point yet again. 634 million for the sellers, 606 for the buyers. They're trying, they're opening up a bit of a margin here, trying to pull that price down. And once a few buyers basically break down and head towards the 6, let's see where we're bouncing at, the 630, yeah, probably like 629, the first one that would put up a kind of sell order for that price here. And it's still a decent margin now between sellers and buyers. You're probably looking at a little bit of an extra swing down that's going to push us to a more pronounced 1-year low point. These small scale injectors should not be able to counter that move, but they are. Okay, very weird. I really don't have an explanation for that. But actually we have a little bit of a pullback for these small scale injectors back towards 130 million. It's 128 for the sellers and 122 for the buyers. So this remains something that I can't really explain all that well, but we've quite often seen that whilst large scale injectors have a more straightforward trajectory, although there are some waves, the small scale injectors quite often do a surprise little bouncy move, counter to the general trend when you least expect it. And after that, we've got the daily alpha injectors that were going down quite a lot and have basically hit their average 37.5 million. And you can see here that a little bit of trading started to happen after that final decline. So here it's the same thing. All right, we're breaking through like 42 million, we're breaking through 40 million. And then eventually, of course, traders come back in and say that may be low enough, fast enough for me to start to look into that. 37 to 38 million actually for most sellers, and yeah, 35 million for the buyers. I think they'll have a hard time pushing that even lower at this point. And then finally, we've got the hypercores that is kind of confirming that deflationary situation here. Again, it's very difficult for us, of course, to know exactly what's behind all of this. It could be lower activity. It could also be that the stranglehold that CCP has, you could say, on resource generation and ISK generation, the big change in nullsec is being felt throughout the economy, causing deflation in quite a few assets. 256,000 for the sellers, 238 for the buyers. Another 1-year low point right here does make them kind of affordable. I think what may play here as well, because I do notice here like a little bit of a maybe a giving up from the market or something like that. We're no longer going to defend this 260 bottom. We're no longer going to defend this 240 bottom for plex here. It may be there was a Twitch clip that was on the subreddit where CCP dev Ratati, I think it is, who kind of mentioned that CCP is happy with the current state of ISK generation in nullsec, and of course if you're hoping for that to turn around to become more lucrative once again when CCP decides to go the other route, to bring us back into a more average normal resource and ISK generation place for the game. True, I'm expecting like new mechanics and more dynamic mechanics for that. So not, all right, well, we're going to add more bounties, or I don't think those are steps that we should expect, but new ways to create stuff is probably what CCP wants to do. Dynamic ways that sort of, force you to move around if you want to chase that. I think that's going to be their goal, and that here they said, don't expect bounties to make a big comeback anytime soon. The balance that we're at now is probably as good as it's gonna get, and so they may have given up a little bit, and that's showing up here as a deflationary spike, of course. So that's it for the plex stuff. Let's move on to the minerals. That's coming in at 1355. Here you may already have seen that from the ticker as well. We're also seeing a little bit of pressure, at least in titanium, but we're basically landing on 6 ISK, which is, historically, I would say an okay average price. So if we take a look at the GDA sellers, they're just above 6 ISK. Buyers are at 580, pretty much, very narrow margin. Numbers here, 40 million, 80 million, 100 million, $500 million here. That's a little bit more, but overall, I feel like this is absorbable with wick, perhaps a little bit of extra pressure here. Super stable around 6 ISK, and this is really a price where I would say, yeah, you're getting a decent return on your mining. Nothing too special, but you know, selling doesn't really mean a big loss or anything like that. But you also have the option to hold back some of your titanium and try to sell at a better price later down the line, which is, as we know, definitely possible. I mean, 7 ISK is not something that is completely crazy or unique to the resource crunch situation that we've been in for the last year or so. A big fight, a couple of super losses in nullsec can quite often drive enough demand all of a sudden in JITA or in general to push up the price. And so this is, to me, an interesting place for titanium where you can basically make your choice, and that also means that you can do as much or as little immediate selling as you want to do or feel comfortable with, which is always, in my opinion, a nice place to be in as a miner. You don't feel like, all right, I gotta make more titanium, I gotta mine, I gotta take advantage of these prices. You can just set your base, sell what you want to sell, keep what you want to keep as an investment, and just, you know, move forward. And all of that is going to, you know, have normally a pretty nice value as you continue playing the game. Pyrite, I think, will be in the same spot. In fact, just slowly moving up towards 20 ISK on this one. 1912 for the sellers, and the buyers, that's a little bit of a weird one. Quite a bit of action, a couple jumps out, but just below 19 ISK for the buyer. So also pretty flat historically. I think this is actually a very good price for pyrite. Nothing too crazy either. I'd put that in the exact same category. You can decide to hold, you can decide to sell, depending on your needs. After that, of course, for HiSec, we also have Mexalon that is still above 125. 125 now for the first seller, but you know, that's 10,000 units. 126 for most, 116 for the buyers. This is a different situation, honestly. If I would be mining anyways, I would look for Mexalon sources and I would sell my Mexalon. This is still a massive premium over a year ago, over the normal average price for Mexalon. This is a great price. You can also very clearly see that this is like a top chart. I don't expect this to go away too quickly, but generally we're starting to see a bit of pressure in the mineral markets. I would try to take advantage of this as much as possible. So any time spent mining in HiSec, I definitely recommend Mexalon. You know, decide what you want to do with Trit and Pyrite, which will usually be side products, but my Mexalon, I try to bring that to the market as quickly as possible. For Isogen next, all right, able to stay above 40. So here, basically, for the last couple of months, you could also say that we've been flat except for one big downturn, and the main culprit for that is this one right here, a seller of 1.9 billion units. That's been here for quite a while. Another 28 days and it will be gone, but that doesn't mean that the Isogen is gone. Of course, whoever's holding them will find them back in his cargo hold, and will then have to decide what to do with them. But this has really been what has kept the price in that current range, which in my opinion is still a little bit low. So these, I'm reading these as old stocks. If you would just get rid of this one, then I think that for the numbers we would go up in price pretty quickly for Isogen. So my personal take on this one is that I would hold on to it. I would not be selling Isogen at the moment. I would definitely look for better prices later down the line, which could be a long time. I'll have to admit that, because very clearly we still have to get through billions and billions of units of old Isogen that needs to be absorbed. After that, we have the Noxium market, and that's the exact opposite, of course, pretty much like Mexalon. We're at a high point. I mean, a little bit of a recovery from the one-year high point, but it's still a massive premium over a year ago. 1,350 for the sellers, 1,288 for the buyers. Extremely high price. Definitely a profitable mineral at the moment. Next up, we've got the Zydrine market. That's also continuing quite a strong run towards 1500 ISK. Yeah, 1500 for the sellers, 1400 for the buyers. Look at these volumes. That's the result of these types of volumes, of course. Very expensive at the moment. Definitely, you know, if you can make it, if you can find it. In fact, I would say if you loot some stuff, I tend to now just reprocess the smallest stuff, because from time to time, I know that, for instance, hull repairers, you know, stuff that you really don't use a lot in the game, in my opinion, refine for more in mineral worth than the actual products. At least I've seen that pattern. I mean, prices will adjust, of course, to that reality, but for very cheap loot, definitely look into reprocessing that into minerals, you know, stuff like Zydrine and Noxium. Absolutely worth it. And then we've got the Megasite chart. That's, well, pretty stable above 600. Not a great price, honestly, historically speaking, but all right. 630 for the sellers and 577 for the buyers. And then next after that, we've got our Morphite chart. That's slowly stabilizing and you know, giving away a little bit of the top, but it's really still super expensive. 72,000 disc for the sellers and 69,500 for the buyers. To give you guys the historical perspective, I have made, like years ago, some successful trades in Morphite, and I've always bought well below 10,000 ISK. So this is crazy expensive at the moment. All right, let me blow my nose for a moment. Sorry, and drink a little bit of water. Like that, as we move on to PI at 2050. There we go. So PI coming in, and well, those minerals, you saw a lot of them have very big gains, and so we also know that the more passive way of generating stuff has been punished severely through the resource crunch. PI is, of course, one of the best examples for that. Here are the broadcast nodes. Went down to less than 1 million ISK, you know, losing 50% of its value because of what was happening here. Made a little bit of a comeback. And my read on this is that part of this increase is also speculation on new structure stuff coming out now. I think it was hinted at again in one of those live streams. I didn't manage to catch that live stream myself, but if I'm not mistaken, you know, it was kind of mentioned that CCP was working on ways to have an influence over the like the area of the system that you're playing in. So, you know, there's still hope, I would say, for people that have invested in these advanced PI materials. But of course, it is a little bit of a gamble. We don't exactly know what CCP is planning to do, and we're starting to see the first signs of pressure here on the broadcast nodes that are going back down a little bit. Less than 1.4 million for the sellers. 1.3 million for the buyers. Construction blocks. All right, that's not good news. A bit of a surprise, but it's that same, right? 7,000 disc, definitely a barrier that's defended quite often by the market, but here at the end, 5-day moving average well below that. 7,000 for the first seller, 6,500 for the buyers, and to get these averages, it basically means that dumping is happening to these buyers as well. Consumer electronics also showing signs of pressure yet again. 6.5 below that, 6,500 for the sellers, 6,100 for the buyers. I mean, we're going to go through these a little bit more quickly as Coolants confirms the trend. Another 1-year low point, and is starting to hit 5,000 disc. This on big volume, so more dumping, people that are just, you know, fed up. Less than 6,000 for the sellers, 5,400 for the buyers. The pressure in PI is just unstoppable. I think now perhaps even the plex, you know, giving up on holding on to a certain price is starting to show through all of this as well. If there's going to be deflation, then unfortunately PI is going to become a casualty of that as well. And I think it's being shown quite clearly here that on at least some of these refined PI materials, we get a little bit of a oof, you know what, just sell it all. We'll start from scratch. Get me the ISK now, even though on this chart it's looking like a really bad time to do so. After that, cryoprotectant solutions. Let's see if we manage to get below 100,000 on the sellers. Just 100k. 88,000 for the buyers, though. That margin is opening up. That pressure is definitely building after a bit of a hesitation, I would say, a bit of a bottom forming, and the advanced, probably because the advanced SPI materials were moving back up, making back some of that lost ground. But I think that the market is saying, well, we really don't know, and it's starting to show that the pressure is definitely still there. Enriched uranium, you can clearly see here, moved below 6250 and is not really getting back up from that. 400 for the sellers, 5750 for the buyers. For enriched uranium, I mean, this stuff is not that easy to make, and it is now very, very cheap. Integrity response drones, there we can start to see, here's the comeback of the last like 2.5 months ago, and then peaked at almost 170 million. Sellers are still there, 1.8 million, but the buyers are going down to 1.5 million. And to get these averages, well, that means we're dumping to those buyers at the moment. Mechanical parts, right, also showing that the pressure is back down to 6.6 for 6,600 disk for the sellers, 6.3 for the buyers. Nanites never really made that comeback. And never really broke. Well, actually here it went below 5,000 disks, so we were back on that. And then actually here, big volumes that slightly moved the price up. I'm gonna say that's a little bit of buying maybe happening in nanites. I wouldn't blame you. 5,400 for the sellers, buyers above 5k. I'd be looking to buy this below 5,000 disk, because we see this bubble here, you could say, in April, May. Nanites are tied to the production of implants, and that could be something that CCP might do in the future as well. So grabbing cheap nanites, I think that's what's happening here on these volumes. You can clearly see we touch 5k, and then we start to pick up some of that cheap nanite in the market. That's definitely something that seems to be happening, and is the reason why this one is not breaking down anymore. Nano factories try to break out a little bit here as well, make back some of the losses, but look at that pressure from the back, very close to the 1-year low point, less than 700,000 for the sellers, 660,000 for the buyers. Organic mortar applicators starting to show the pressure as well, heading back below 700 on average, 750 for the sellers, 665 for the buyers. Again, to get this chart then, it means that some players have to start to just dump to the buy prices here. So you can pick up cheap organic mortar applicators from the current buy orders. Recursive computing modules, again, a couple months ago, tried to make back a little bit of that price loss from like a year before, but the pressure is right back. So it's the same story almost everywhere. Robotics broke through below 60,000 disk. I think sellers will be just above that, 62,058 for the buyers. So this is also like really a very, very cheap price. Normally, in my experience, robotics should be around 100,000 disk. Self-harmonizing power cores didn't make that much of a comeback, and so it's still stuck in that 125 million range. Really, is that what it's showing on? Yeah, that's what it's showing on the chart. Sellers at almost 1.7 million. What the hell is happening there? Or do we have competition? It then jumps out. That's kind of strange. So we may see a bit of a move up next week for self-harmonizing power cores, because it does look like the market is a little bit ahead of the chart here all of a sudden. Sterile conduits above 800,000. Yeah, that's more logical. 830 for the sellers, 770 for the buyers. But here we don't see the move up in January, February. So this one is basically flat at its low range. Yukomi superconductors. Let's take a quick look at that. So here we have another early spike here. That's implant introductions, so definitely something to keep in mind as well for those that want to invest, hoping for CCP to come in with another implant set. 64,500 for the sellers, 60,000 for the buyers. 60,000 is around here. I think you could, again, don't put all your ISK in this basket, but a little bit of Yukomi superconductors market buying at the moment would make sense to me. And finally, Whitware mainframe, again, here in January, bit of a comeback to 125, but how long can it maintain that price? 1.3 million for the sellers, 1.28 million for the buyers. Looks like it'll be able to maintain this for now. It's also not a great comeback compared, for instance, to what was happening to the broadcast nodes. I expect this to start to go down quite a lot. So PI pressure is back. Advanced Moon Materials next at 29.10. For Advanced Moon Materials, we as always start with the Tech 2 related items. Let's start with crystalline carbonite for Galente. That is 162 about a week ago, coming back down a little bit, but honestly 156 for the sellers, 146 for the buyers. Still a great price, definitely above average for the year here, and some volatility in the Galente base material. Not bad. Let's see if that translates in the Tech 2 ships a little bit later down the line. Next up, we've got Caldari, which is titanium carbide that had the 1-year high point spike up to above 250. We are, of course, plugging that gap very quickly. Let's take a look though. 187, 188, quickly to 190 for the sellers, 174 for the buyers. If we look here at like an average price right in the middle of the chart, 160, still trading well above average at the moment, and that's pretty big volatility, of course. After that, we have the Minmatar ferrite carbide that is spiking right now. Okay, volatility all over the place. I like it. Tech 2 market may become quite interesting all of a sudden. About, what would it be, 6 months ago or so, I thought perhaps a general depression would be coming for the Tech 2 market in general, but that was not the case. Here now, we're definitely seeing a nice spike. And I think that part of that could be the rebalancing, the change to the Marauders. I think those will pick up in popularity quite a bit. They're pretty much, are they the biggest Tech 2 things you can make, requiring the most in the materials? And so as a result, we may see some spikes that could really be the jump start for some real volatility in Tech 2, which we love, of course, because that's something we could trade on. Ferrite carbide selling for 200, buyers at 176. Yeah, we saw some volatility in ferrite carbide before, but this was very clearly because of the war. And then here we get a little bit of volatility coming back, but the range, 125 to 150, not that great. We finally have a real breakout on the upside up to 200 ISK, 1-year high point, very expensive. Of course, you should fully expect this to get plugged very quickly. An opportunity like that is spotted and then, plugged super quickly by the market here. But it's showing that the volatility is potentially coming back. Let's see if the ones that have really been the least volatile was Amar, and here we go. At least we've got a little bit, right? We jumped up to 200 for the sellers, 173 complete buyout. So let's hope that this is the first wave and that this can indeed produce some volatility. It would be very interesting for the ship market. After that, we get our metamaterials. Let's see if there's volatility there. Galente, here we go. Photonic metamaterials, no, flat 12,500. That's it, not much to say. Super flat slide up trend from a 1-year low point, still below average. Interesting. After that, we have the Caldari non-linear metamaterials. That's a little bit better, right? Definitely volatility, highs well above 20,000 ISK, lows below 20,000 ISK. I mean, they're slowing down, right? We're definitely seeing less volatility, so higher lows, and the peaks are definitely declining here as well. But this was still a nice volatile chart that did translate to some volatility in the Tech 2 Caldari ships over the last couple of months, way more than in the other empires that I've seen at least. Then we've got the Minmatar one, plasmonic metamaterials, flat at 20k, definitely more expensive than the Galente one, 19,280 for the sellers, 18,730 for the buyers. But there's not that much to say except for this was the war, so basically if you take that out, you've got a pretty stable chart that has recovered from the low point in December. And then finally, terahertz metamaterials for Amar. These had basically, above 20k first half of the year. Then we've got a decline to a new normal around 15,000, and we're slowly here also trying to get back 16,800 for the sellers, 16,400 for the buyers. A bit of recovery, but we're definitely nowhere near the 20k that we would normally pay for terahertz metamaterials. So at least in the base product, we are seeing some serious volatility all of a sudden. Then it has some other stuff as well in the advanced boom materials. I'm personally still not really sure exactly what everything here is used for, but the general feeling here over the last couple of months was that this also declined massively, just like PI, probably under pressure from all of the ISK flowing into minerals, and we've got a little bit of a comeback in some of them, but overall I'm not convinced that it's going to be structural. 74,000 for the sellers, 67,500 for the buyers. So we're away from the bottom, but you can clearly see that we've got quite a bit of room to grow still if we want to recover and get back to where we were last year. Ferrogel, all right, at least here we get some volatility, but again, we start at 40k, bottom at 30k, we're now at 35,000. It's a recovery, but it's still not the average price for sure. Fullerite as well, normally above 1,000 ISK, or at least around 1,000 ISK, and here you get that decline going down to 500 ISK. We're at 750. But right away, whenever you really break out here, right, we went up to almost 900 ISK. Product comes online, and it's kept in check very easily. Hypersynaptic fibers try to get back to 11k. There we go, right back down on more supplies. Nanotransistors, all right, again trying to get back to that 5,000 ISK average. Normally we move above that range, now we're moving below that range. Phenolic composites, here's our one exception. This is actually nice. This is tradable. You can buy for close to 1250 and now you can sell for 1800 ISK. And this is the second time in a month that we see a spike of this nature. So there are exceptions to the deflationary below average rule here. Phenolic composites, very, very interesting. There's got to be some winners and losers in these volumes that have been able to buy low and sell high, but that also means that someone has to have picked them up at these super high prices. But this is the second one, a bit more structural as well, has been holding on for about 10 days now at this pretty good price, almost back to the normal average price here. So very interesting to see that first bit of volatility come back here, and then another one breaking the trend, but perhaps following suit along with some of the other materials for Tech 2 ships here. Ceramic fibers starts here at 350, then here again you can see our pressure period when we have lows below 300 ISK, and then now we are selling for 500 ISK, buyers coming in at 485. I'll be honest, this is also very interesting because for quite a few months I've always said, all right, well, we're pretty low, we're getting even lower, we're seeing all of that pressure, but it turns out, right, if you would have bought some of these materials on the 1 year low points, right, that here for instance ceramic fibers you could have bought here for probably below 300 ISK once, twice, 3 times. If you had done that with at least a little bit of ISK, with some investments there, you're looking at a pretty big gain on those if you try to sell right now. So that's definitely perhaps another lesson to learn here, is that those 1 year low points at some point they do tend to become super good buys. Now, not always, right? There's definitely dangers. Let's quickly go back to one of those PI charts right here. For instance, right, this is 1 year low point, 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 right? So constantly buying through this rush down, not necessarily the best thing to do, but there are other charts like here, the ceramic fibers, where those were always the same price range, and if you had bought here right now, you're looking at a very nice profit, and I would definitely unload that, take it, because well, it's like a 2/3 profit on a 300 ISK purchase, so that's definitely not bad. Next up, the Tech 2 ships, 3825. Let us see if that volatility is already showing up here in the Tech 2 ship market. So Caldari ships have actually had a pretty good year. You can see that here in the Basilisk, low at 190, highs at 240. That's definitely tradable. Then here we had a decline to 180, lovely trade here as well. But now the latest bounce has been a little bit more limited. We're currently at 200 to 214 million, let's say, for most sellers, 173 to 174 for the buyers. So that's pretty damn low. That's around here somewhere. So I would say, you know, we're on this decline. We may already be oversupplied quite a little bit. Looking at the buyers, you could try to buy a cheap Basilisk at the moment. Cerberus is also coming from a nice high period, 3 spikes up above 280 million is definitely something that you know, was a nice sell opportunity if you bought close to 200 million, which you could have before. And now we may be overshooting a little bit on the supplies, 218 for the sellers, 203 million for the buyers, but it's just, let's see here, 6 buyers and you're below 200 million ISK, so that would be pretty damn nice. Of course, if we get just a little bit more supply, that could actually happen. We could get to the best buy opportunity of the year if this momentum maintains. And well, considering where we come from, it could happen, right? Over almost 2 months, you know, they saw Cerberus at 280 million. So make him. It's not easy to always bring all of those to the market quickly. We may overshoot here. So this is what I would be looking at right now for the Cerberus. Can we drop below? In fact, you get 2, 4, 6, 7 of them and you're below 190. So if you could get rid of these, then I mean, I'm putting up a buy order. Then I'm trying to grab a Cerberus so much below the chart that it's going to be nicely profitable. Then we've got the Guardian. All right, not exactly volatility, but what we do see is a recovery in 2 steps above 200 million. Again, 200 for the sellers, 189 million for the buyers. So yeah, 200 million average. Basically, no one is selling to these, and people have the patience and need to pay up 200 million for the Guardian at the moment. Then we've got the Hound staying above 25 million here, unfortunately. I mean, the first part of the chart is pretty good. Buy below 25, sell above 35 million, and that's definitely trade-worthy. But after we broke 20 million on the downside here, we still have to basically find our footing, I think. 26 million for the sellers, 22 for the buyers. Not exactly a place where I would make a move. The Ichthyorsa is continuing to show some signs of pressure. 788 for the sellers, 701 for the buyers. My read on that is same as last week, I would say, with Triglavian stuff. Eventually, more and more players will have access to that. It's a matter of standings and it's fixable. So it's really a matter of just spending the time to get positive with both Eden.com and the Triglavian Collective, which normally is possible by going after rogue drones in Triglavian space. I mean, that's a little bit risky, but I think that slowly you should always see more and more players get into that position, and so we should get more and more supplies, and so we should see lower prices eventually. The Ishtar unfortunately showing some more pressure at the moment as well. 204 million for the sellers, 181 for the buyers. That's definitely pretty low on the chart as well. Then we've got the Manticore that is back up, well above average right now, selling for 32 million, buyers at 26 million. If you have a cheap Manticore from about 3 months ago, which you bought close to 20 million, you can definitely take a nice profit at the moment. And it's Caldari, a bit more volatility here, that is definitely welcome. But my general perspective at the moment, I'm actually still seeing pressure in those Tech 2 ship prices, and let's keep in mind what's happening here with all these carbide materials, right? Across the board, we've got a nice spike for all of these. Eventually, that should translate. So really, honestly, I'd look at trying to buy some cheap Tech 2 ships at the moment for a trade, which is not the Manticore, but it is the Ishtar, it is the Cerberus, potentially the Hound, although I wouldn't honestly. So it's interesting though. Here we've got the Munin under pressure, 1 year low point, so that's a possibility as well. 180 for the sellers, below 170 for the Munin. Let's take a look at that for the buy prices. Can I get that to show up on the chart? Yeah, that's definitely a 1 year low point as well that you could look into. As always, I would buy one Munin, try to buy one Munin at the price. And at this point also, yeah, let's keep that one warning in mind. Deflation may be here in the game, so it's a little bit risky, but honestly, looking at what's happening in advanced movements, I think buying low now does make sense. The Nemesis unfortunately lost all its volatility, which it had quite decently in the first half of the year, and is basically settling at 25 million, 25 for the sellers, 22 for the buyers. Yeah, that's a super narrow margin right in the middle of things. I wouldn't make a move on that. On Neros though, that's where the volatility is at, back up to 200 million ISK. Now that's where you could make some trades, honestly. 205 for the sellers, 178 for the buyers. At the moment, right, selling is definitely the time to do so. Volumes have picked up, but let's keep this in mind, it's always below 40 a day. So this again, you could try with a single ship. That's going to be doable. Don't buy half a dozen or a dozen on Neroses. You're going to get stuck with those. Then the Panther, a little bit of a jump up here. I think this is gonna be because of the Marauder rebalancing. Almost 1.1 billion for the sellers, almost a billion for the buyers. The Purifier is making 1, 2, 3 steps back up towards 30 million ISK. 28 for the sellers, 26 for the buyers. Back slightly above average. Basically that recovery from the advanced movements, I think, is starting to show here. Still not translating in tradable volatility, which you see here, for instance, buy at close to 25, sell at 35. That's what we want to see, of course. Then the Scimitar landing on 200 million, 202, 190. No, I would just not try to buy this either. Then the Widow. Here's the recovery. Again, I'm reading this as Marauder rebalance, more need for Tech 2 materials, and it is starting to push up the battleships first. Hopefully, it could trigger volatility in the other Tech 2 ships. Almost 1.2 billion now for a Widow, and almost 1.1 for the buyers. So that's definitely back above average, showing cost should be going up because of more demand for other ships. And then the Zealot still flat at the low point, below 180 for the sellers, 173.5 for the buyers. Perhaps try to buy one of these on the cheap. It could be good, but again, also volumes not great for the Zealot, so don't buy too many of them. Next up, the Tech 3 ship market, coming in at 46.20. A little bit of drinking first. So I can keep going. And yeah, let's see. Last week, I think we were basically still normalizing in the tactical destroyer market, and here in the Confessor, I'm just seeing more of the same. Around 45 million, 47 for the sellers, 41 million for the buyers. Last 24 hours, maybe half a dozen. Nothing crazy in the volumes. It's starting to slow down a little bit for 47 million, but this is nothing special. I feel like this is normal, well balanced. I don't expect anything drastic to happen. Heckgate, look at that, pretty much the same chart. Actually ticked up a little bit, but not too much. 49 million for the sellers, 45 million for the buyers. Slightly more expensive, and here is a response. Maybe double the amount of sell orders, a 20, a 12, nothing outlandish, but just making sense, right? This one is a couple million more expensive than the Confessor. You're getting some more supply. So this is just set to be stable in this range for now, unless we see something special happening. Here is the Jackdaw, also stepping up a little bit in price, back in that same range. 48 million almost for the sellers, 43 million for the buyers. Here we almost have a full page, but a little bit less in the volume. So this again is right on the money. This is the current range for the tactical destroyers. Everything is well supplied, not oversupplied. I cannot see this make a big move or a predictable move at the moment, unless this Fable would do something crazy, but it's not just above 45 million. A little bit less expensive, 47.4 for the sellers, 43 for the buyers, and then it's the least popular one, so you only get like 5 sell orders. Volumes, they're there and they're low enough to not really be disruptive or oversupplied at all. So tactical destroyer market, unfortunately, I don't have any predictions for you here. I think we're where the market wants to be, and the suppliers are just, following suit. They're not doing anything too special here. So then if you want to, try and find some tradable stuff, perhaps you could look at the cruisers, but as I've said, I would always be very careful with this. Here's the Legion, breakout to 200 million, 1 year high point, already selling back down to 187, 171 for the buyers. Super unpredictable. You do have higher volumes here, so perhaps a bit of buying from Nullsec is at play here, but this is completely unpredictable in my book. So yeah, Legion 186, you could probably try to sell at a slight profit at the moment. I do think it's all going to get plugged very quickly. Then we get the Loki counter move. It's actually going down in price a little bit, 171 for the sellers, 158 for the buyers. But if you look at where we've been before, substantially below 150 is where I would perhaps try to buy a Loki, so we're not there yet. Proteus also meandering in the middle despite a big volume spike here. Hardly seeing a move on the price. 165 for the sellers, 150 for the buyers. Again, a low point can be well below this. I would not make a move here either. And then the Tengu had a breakout to well above 200 million, is recovering from that. 185 for the sellers, 165 for the buyers. So sometimes you get these spikes like here and like here with the Legion, but to trade in them, to actually take advantage of them, is very difficult because the price goes down very, very quickly on just a couple of ships. So here you can even predict when something like that is going to happen, and taking advantage of this really requires either super close attention to the market and very low volumes as well, in my opinion, because otherwise you're gonna get stuck at those lower prices very, very quickly. So I would always only buy a 1 year low point for Tech 3 cruisers and then sell, at the first opportunity that I get a little bit of risk out of that. But it's unpredictable, very difficult, unlike the tactical destroyer market that can be predictable, in my opinion. This one is the gamble market, and at the moment, all of them are basically in average places, so I wouldn't make a move at the moment. That leaves us the extra product for the week, coming in at 5105. 5105 and someone requested some salvage, so we're gonna try to go through this stuff. Let's take a look. My expectation on salvage, well, we've got to take 2 salvage drones. I think we should be up in efficiency, so a little bit down in price. I expect pressure to be shown here, so let's go for the salvaged materials. We'll go through this mostly focusing on the charts because it is definitely a large category. Going over all of these in detail is next to impossible, but here, for instance, allowed titanium bar, definitely a low range at the moment and basically staying there. Armor plates, a bit of pressure in the last month or so, currently trading around average. All right, managed to maintain some value. Artificial neural networks, definitely pretty low as well. Broken drone transceivers, low range. Burnt logic circuits, pressure here, definitely below average. Capacitor consoles, excuse me. All right, this one's above average at 600,000 ISK, so that's probably for Tech 2. Let's take a quick look at that. Yeah, for Tech 2, that may be a little bit different. It's harder to get. It doesn't really depend on your efficiency. It depends on your knowledge of the game, which rats will yield that, where do you find that. That takes a bit more work. So as a result, this may be a little bit more expensive. Chart microcircuits, that's a big volume spike, but that volume spike like that cannot have an impact on the price, or hardly have an impact on the price, is kind of crazy. So I'd still put this at below average. Conductive polymer around average. Thermoplastics below average. Next one below average. Let's take a look. So we're gonna focus Tech 1 in, right? That looks below average, so there's not that much to say. This 10K below average, below average. Current pump, all of these are definitely not doing too well. Then you get some of the new stuff, very difficult to read charts, but that's tied to like Tick 2, to Triglavian and Edencom stuff. Enhanced console wards, well, it's going for 4 million. It is Tick 2 related, a little bit of a bump here. It's not a great price, but it's definitely not a below average price at this point, I would say. So compared to the last couple of months, this is not bad. Fried interface circuits, not great. Yeah, not much to say on this one. Impetus console came from a spike, so this I'm expecting Tech 2 here again, looking at the blue icon, and it is. So what you got here is a bit more volatility, sometimes 400,000 disk, 350,000 disk. Right now it's a little bit down, but I don't think it's part of that general trend. For Tech 2 it feels like it's a little bit different. Intact armor plates, not that great, but still 4.5 million for a single piece of salvage is not so bad. Shield emitters, those are Tech 2 as well. Yep, those are actually pretty high at 600,000 at the moment. Interface circuits trying to get back up there, so those are away from the bottom. Logic circuits, very high, 800,000. Lawrence fluid though, I'm gonna say Tech 1. No, it's Tech 2, alright. Not that great, so there's some exceptions, but then this ought to be Tech 1. Let's take a quick look. Yeah, this is Tech 1, and here you clearly have that we're not moving anywhere trend on the chart, I would say, except here is a melted capacitor, that's Tech 1, and a bit of a breakout up to 40,000 disks. So here's our first exception, melted capacitor console. Just one that you could, if like me, I sometimes do salvage and I just gather that in the trade hubs. You could look into selling your melted capacitors for a nice premium at the moment. Nanite compound, that's going to be Tech 2. Power circuit Tech 2 is pretty high as well. Power conduit pretty high as well. Yeah, it's the trend here. We're back to some Tech 1 stuff that's basically languishing at the low points. Here again, smash triggers, 1 year low points. Tangled power circuit, actually a bit of a breakout. Is that Tech 1? Quick check. Yeah, it is Tech 1. So there are some exceptions. All right, tangled power circuit. You can definitely sell that at a nice premium at the moment. Then we're going over all of these charts, but telemetry processor below average. Below average. Not much to say. Below average. Look at that trip power circuit, definitely lost a lot of value here as well, and still seeing pressure even at the end of the chart. And then we get the ward consoles also really low, well below average at 30k. So that's the general trend, right? In salvage, I would say Tech 2 salvage is valuable. Quite a few of those above average, spiking, a couple of them down, but it's in a more volatile way. For Tech 1, unfortunately, I think that my prediction or my read on that is correct. We've upped the efficiency with the Tech 2 salvage drones, with the special salvage drones. You can just, spend a little bit less time and aggregate that to all the players doing salvage, and you've got more efficiency, which means lower prices in general for Tech 1 related salvage materials at the moment. And that's it for this Eve Talk, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.